Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're cracked up to be? Here at Terrible Book Club, we explore whether you really can judge a book by its cover, or its ridiculous synopsis. You ever passed a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
And welcome to episode 239 of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Book Barella, and this is Scribando.
Hello!
This time, I read Now That You Have Seen Me by C.L. Roberts, which was submitted to the show by the author herself in a Twitter DM sometime between 2024 and 2025. Alas, that conversation was lost to time and her Twitter account's deletion, so I can't quite remember what she said.
We get around to it eventually.
Yeah, all I know is that she's also from the Boston area, and she makes soap, and I was going to tell everyone about her soap and link to it, but I also can't find that, so I don't know, this person just disappeared in the last...
If we got to it earlier, Paris...
Yeah. I know.
Maybe her business would have been saved.
I know. It's too bad. But if I figured that out before the episode airs, I will insert some links in the show notes. But in any case, yeah, this was just a random author submission. And at the time when it was submitted, we were already I feel like we were done with recording or were about to be done. So I was just like, I don't know, I'll throw this in the pile and check it out at some point. And I checked it out and thought it would work for this year. I kind of think it's fun for us to touch on either authors local to us or books that involve Boston every now and then. I don't know. It's just sort of fun for us, I think, a little bit.
There's some expertise in there.
Yeah, and I also really like doing some unknown contemporary authors in addition to sort of legendary, wacky books from the internet or history past. So it's kind of, we like to mix it up. We don't like to do the same thing every week because that's boring for us. I don't know. ADHD, autism, who knows what's going on over here? All of it, more of it. It's all fucked up over here. So, we have no attention span. So every week we do a different genre pretty much. Except for there was a period of time where we were stuck in romance and then again in fantasy. We were in these horrible potholes for periods of time. But anyway, generally speaking, we try to change it up to keep you all interested as well as us. So, if this is your first time listening to this show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is read books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination of the three. Sometimes, like today, we read books that our patrons, listeners, friends, or random authors on Twitter recommend in DMs. So we do the opposite of what most people do in a bookstore or while they're browsing the internet. Usually, this experiment results in a hilariously disappointing read, but once in a while we end up liking the book or even loving it, which is very fun for us when that happens. We love that. We don't want to hate your book. Turns out we actually don't.
I know that the conceit of the show makes it feel like that, but in general, we're trying to find a good time.
In addition to our usual barnyard language, today's episode includes discussion of drug use, severe mental illness, sex, and just a dash of racism and a pinch of some phobias we got to talk about just for a little bit. All right, so here's the sort of back of the book or Amazon summary. In this case, I actually have the physical book, so I will read you the back of it, except it is covered in pencil shavings and dust. Hang on a second, let me just...
Oh, what have you been up to?
Coloring. That's...
Oh, fun. Oh.
My coworker, one of my coworkers, who's awesome, she gave me a spooky coloring book for the holiday season, which
with spooky, scary skeletons, perhaps?
Well, it's actually called the Corporate Chaos Spooky Edition coloring book. And
okay.
It is...
I'm just saying that because spooky, scary skeletons is my practice phrase, because you may be noticing, listeners, that my S sounds are real fucked up right now. I started Invisalign, and I'm wearing it. This is day 3 of, I don't know, day 400 whatever, because I'm in this shit for 18 months, apparently. So if you notice that my S sounds are kind of weird, I'm still getting used to it. Sorry.
Yeah, we're this is an experiment. We're gonna try to do one episode with and one without and see how it goes. But sometimes you got to do things for your health, and too bad if they make other people a little sad. Sorry for the sibilants, folks, but Chris's oral health is more important than your ears. So, good day. No, but back to my coloring book. So my coworker gave me this. This is a very uncharacteristic thing. I am not a person who would want a coloring book usually, but I remembered I had some colored pencils at my desk, and I was like, you know what? Whenever something pisses me off, I'm going to do a little coloring. And so I've been coloring. But many years ago, I had a planner that had some coloring pages in it. And I was like, I guess I'll try this. And then that didn't really work out. But I still have the colored pencils because I'm not going to get rid of something that's useful. And now, all these years later, I have a use.
Finally.
And so, for example, the first page says, feeling cute, might flip a desk later. I mean, just really stupid. It's got like desk supplies around it. And then there's like a hell office, and there's a skeleton giving a thumbs up, and it says dead inside on the wall. It's really stupid.
Great.
It's really stupid. And I
really raising the morale there in the office.
Well, I actually really like my job, but as with any job, there are people you work with or projects that you have to do that make you, want to maybe flip a desk. So instead of doing that, I now color in my coloring book because I am a child, turns out. So, new year, embracing some new tactics to deal with work stress.
Anyway, that's why there's shavings on
the back of this book. All right, back to Now That You Have Seen Me. Now That You Have Seen Me is a gripping and unapologetically raw exploration of one woman's tumultuous journey through life, love, and mental health. Oh, sorry, that's an Amazon review. Let's sorry, I fucked this up.
It does sound like the beginning of a book blurb.
Sorry,
back of the book.
Yeah, I
summary or
forgot
whatever.
that this has Amazon reviews before the blurb. Excuse me, taking that again. Not all families are loving. Not all relationships end in chaos. And sometimes reality is an illusion. Now That You Have Seen Me is the sometimes dark, sometimes dirty, all times witty story of 29-year-old Farah Glickman's unforgiving, year-and-a-half-long journey to the bottom of her psyche, straight from her own huge potty mouth. That's the actual back of the book summary.
Oh, that's all?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. Is this nonfiction?
Unsure. It's supposed to be fiction, but I suspect that the author must have either has experienced some of this stuff primarily, or must have very close friends or family who has, because I feel like she writes about these things in the book very realistically. So it is fiction. I don't know, and I don't know what this was pulled from in her life or people around her, but I do get the sense that happened. Our characters and setting. All right, so we are in the Boston metro area in 2015, but we also flash back to earlier times in the main character's life. So we go to like the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, whatever. Our main character is Farah Glickman, a 29-year-old who has just unwillingly been entered into a conservatorship. Her parents, mother and daddy, which is how she refers to them. There's Brandon, her unborn, or it's unclear for most of the book, unborn or infant, very infant, recently born younger sibling who died when Farah was 6. Bonnie, Farah's therapist in present day. BJ, Farah's best friend. Brandy, Farah's very clingy friend who she doesn't really like but tolerates. Shoshana, BJ's friend from college. And then Farah's various boyfriends, Dirk, Tad, Johnny, and Kyle from different eras of her life.
All right. Solid boyfriend name list.
Yeah. Runs the gamut. They run the gamut in terms of personality and background, too. All right, so I was going to say this is a bit long, but it's actually not. It's not terribly long. So listeners, we like to give you a summary of the story so you get the basic plot elements, the big important points, so that when we start talking about a review, you know what we're talking about and perhaps can sort of piece together what the book could be like had you read it yourself. For years, we didn't do this for some reason, and finally realized a few years ago this was important to do. Yeah, so hopefully this helps give you some context and gets you settled in the story so you are a little more there with us for the rest of the episode. It's March of 2016. And 29-year-old Farah is reflecting back on the last 9 months of her life and the significant earlier moments that led to them. On June 1st of the previous year, her independence was revoked by a court. Her parents were made her legal guardians, and she had to move back in with them for at least a year or until the court is satisfied that her rehabilitation is complete. As part of this conservatorship, she must also undergo twice-weekly therapy with Dr. Bonnie Lowenstein. We learn about Farah's life entirely through her internal monologues and the memories that she either journals about or recites to her therapist in sessions. You see, the trouble all started on her 6th birthday when her infant brother died. She has recurring pink and purple day-glow dreams about this day several times throughout the book, and in all of them it's suggested that she hit her mom instead of the piñata with the piñata bat at her party. Her brother's death plunges her mother into lifelong sorrow, and she holds a grudge against Farah for being the surviving child. Consequently, Farah develops a borderline concerning attachment to her father, who she calls Daddy even at this age, partially out of spite and partially because he was the nicer parent. At 7, they move from Dayton, Ohio to Arlington, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, and she has an unremarkable and even cliché childhood, eventually attending Boston University. By Farah's account, the summer of 2007 is when things began to spiral, so this is where she begins her detailed journal entries for Dr. Lowenstein. On May 31st of that year, while out with her friend Giselle at a dive bar, she hooks up with a guy named Dirk in the bathroom, and they carry on dating for several months.
Ew.
They send each other poems via email, and Farah is smitten. It is 2007, I will remind you that. On the day Farah decides to tell Dirk that he's gotten her pregnant, he beats her to the punch and tells her that he's actually married. Farah gets a bit obsessive, but they part ways before his wife returns to town, and she has an abortion. After her breakup with Dirk, she slides further into alcoholism and becomes addicted to psychic hotlines. In the midst of her storytelling, though, it becomes clear that...
combo.
Yeah,
Drunk
real
dialing
bad.
psychic hotlines.
Real expensive habit.
Hey, what do you think is going to happen next? I'll give you a hint.
In the midst of her storytelling, though, it becomes clear that Farah is not always honest with herself, her therapist, or her friends and family. She occasionally slips in some concerning details like, quote, Jesus Christ began speaking to me through the television, a microwave oven, and just about any reflective surface, end quote.
Never a good sign.
No, along with horrifying ones, too. Like when she was 12 and stole a puppy from her neighbor, and instead of returning it, casually put it in a rushing river.
Okay.
Anyway, she meets Tad in 2010 and they date for 7 months. He's actually pretty okay and not a jerk to her, but unfortunately, that means Farah loses interest in him. In the same period, Farah and her friend Giselle are both working at Diamore's in the North End, and Giselle hooks up with Mateo, and Farah thinks she may have too. That spring was a bit of a blur, I guess. Tad tries to help Farah, but Farah instead takes off to the Hamptons for the summer with her best friend BJ and Brandy, who is a friend of their mutual friend Shoshana. BJ has this weird timeshare sort of thing going on where they'll all have to share this big fancy Hamptons house with random people each weekend, but will have it to themselves during the week. At first, Farah thinks anything is better than her real life back home and boring Todd or Tad. Shit, what was his name? Tad. Sorry,
Toad.
I kept forgetting.
It's Toad from Mario, actually.
Toad.
He's a nice guy. Give him a chance.
What's funny is the physical description of Tad is completely the opposite of Toad, so that's actually funny to me.
Doesn't have a mushroom head.
Nope. At first, Farah thinks anything is better than her real life back home, and especially boring Tad, and embraces it, but is very quickly annoyed by Brandy. Brandy dyes her hair the same as Farah, gives herself the same piercing, adopts the same style of dress, and even tries to sleep in the same bed as Farah, which is creepy. However, Farah puts up with it because Brandy has a car and can take her to and from the summer jobs they got in town, until Brandy keeps getting them fired. She's either sassing coworkers or customers or stealing or both, so together they bounce around to 7 different employers over the course of the summer. Meanwhile, they binge drink and party every
also
weekend.
gets fired for what Brandy does?
Yeah, because they were like hired together and they go to work to get, I don't know, whatever.
Weird, but okay.
Meanwhile, they binge drink and party every weekend and often sleep with whoever is staying at the house that particular week. Farrah's instability worsens and she falls into a mania, feeling like she has to restrict her food intake and always be doing something, which then oscillates wildly to the other extreme, where she is locking herself in her room and just watching TV and masturbating for days on end. By this time, BJ was often gone from the Hamptons' house and returned only twice to check on Farrah and Brandy. On the second visit, Brandy attacks BJ and Farrah, locking Farrah outside on the deck. She is frozen, unable to do anything while BJ is assaulted, and eventually gets back into the house to go to bed. She later wakes up in an ambulance en route to the hospital. Farrah, it turns out, was Brandy and Giselle and who knows how many other people we've learned about.
Oh, okay. All right.
She is treated for her various mental illnesses and completes her course of therapy in about a month, is deemed competent and released. Shortly after getting home, though, Jesus Christ is back and they party! And Brandy is calling again.
And we're partying it up.
Presumably, she is not keeping up with her medications and therapy and just goes back to being the Farrah she was prior to her original hospitalization. We fast forward an unclear amount of time to 2014 when she gets a temp job and starts dating Johnny, a Canadian ex-con who lives in Alston and works at Daddy's Junkie Music, R.I.P.
Relevant and topical
R.I.P.
and real.
She grows tired of him quickly and dumps him for her boss at yet another new job. This one is a keeper, though, because he's Dr. Kyle Jarvis, head of clinical research at Jocelyn Diabetes Center. Sunglasses emoji. However, Farrah begins to question their relationship when she realizes that he has an unhealthy obsession with his younger sister, Erica, to a point that he calls Farrah Erica in bed one night.
Uh-oh.
Still, they remain together
Maybe
until they
Daddy's
stay up.
Junkie Music guy doesn't seem so bad anymore.
Well, you see, all the men who are too kind to her, she just gets bored with and leaves. So, still, they remain together until they stay up doing coke all night, and Farrah then takes some Valium she finds in his bathroom and overdoses, nearly dying. 3 days into her hospital stay, Kyle says she needs help and breaks up with her. Her parents then arrive and gain guardianship over her. Now, we're in the present day. Farrah is allowed to return to her Boston apartment, but has her therapy order and guardianship renewed for yet another year. She's excited to make progress with Dr. Bonnie, but is nervous about getting to the bottom of what really happened on her 6th birthday. We cut to Brandy for the final page, who reveals that on her 6th birthday, Giselle killed the 2-month-old Brandon intentionally with the piñata bat. The end.
Oh. All right. Dark.
Yep. So those are kind of the main elements of the story. Chris, do you have any questions before we get into the rubric? Oh,
Just so I understand, she had dissociative identity disorder as a child.
Seemingly, stemming from birth, possibly, or maybe it was around 5 or 6 when her mom became pregnant. It's very unclear as to when it began, but yes, very, very young.
Okay. And the Giselle personality was the murderous one?
Correct. And the Brandy personality is the more... I don't know. Brandy and Farrah are both sort of risk-taking, outgoing, but it seems like Brandy is the one who kind of pushes things over a line, you know?
Okay. All right. I think I get it.
All right, so I'm going to move into the rubric and talk about all the elements of this. First up, we've got technical instruction. Typos. There were a few, like when 2007 was 2017 and a couple of other small ones, but
that
nothing
feels
major.
Big.
Yeah, but it was only one time and it was obvious that it was a mistake.
And you were able to context clue it out.
Yeah. And I don't know, for something that was, sent, presumably sent to some kind of self-publishing print service. Well, it's actually unnamed. This is just...
Oh, it just
printed.
Materialized.
Yeah.
This is a Scribando joint, actually. It was conjured.
For sure. But honestly, I'd rather that than when the vanity publishers have names and they try to trick you into like being a real book publisher. I'd rather this actually to just be like, yeah, an author had their thing printed. It's fine. We don't have we're not trying to like shine this up for you. So for a self-published thing, I actually found the typos to be very reasonable. There were not that many and it didn't disrupt my understanding of the text. So it's fine. Formatting. There is a quote at the beginning, which I usually hate, but this time it was actually appropriate.
Oh.
And when it appears in the text, it is used well. Wow.
Oh my God.
Someone did it.
Holy fuck.
So the quote that is at the beginning of the book is, "Well, now that we have seen each other," said the unicorn, "if you'll believe in me, I'll believe in you. Is that a bargain?" And that is from Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Alice in Wonderland. And it comes up in the book because there's a point where Farah is having kind of an episode and she stares. She's like, all I could think about was this quote from this book. This Alice in Wonderland book, I didn't even like it. And she's just like looking in a mirror and just saying this over and over to herself. And the title of the book is Now That You Have Seen Me. And, it's about someone with multiple personality. I don't know. It works. Like someone fucking did it. Hooray.
I understand.
I just feel like so many times we encounter books with quotes either just from the book itself, but with no additional meaning. And it just feels needless, like with the Midnight Library, or books that have quotes at the beginning or throughout to sort of try to connect themselves to something more important or more well-known. And it's just this thinly veiled attempt to puff themselves
up. Look at
up.
what I've also read.
Yeah, and it sucks, but this was really done well. I gotta applaud the author for that because it's something so many mainstream books and self-published books don't do well. So thank you, C.L. Roberts. I will say the cover is a bit unfortunate, but it's just this we have a white book. The cover is mostly a big gray rectangle with at the top these two smaller white blocks with illustrations of eyes inside of them, and one of the eyes has fingers coming out of it. The text on the cover is poorly rendered and pixelated. And I don't know, it's not great, but I also understand that truly self-published authors like this who don't even go through a vanity press, they're gonna have a harder time than most when it comes to making a cover, right?
At least it's not AI.
It's not AI, right? I was gonna say it's great, but this was also published before the
true.
AI infection.
Before that was
truly,
an option.
Yeah, this was 2021, so it was kind of before things really got out of hand with AI stuff. But yeah, I mean, still, it could have been digitally rendered or something, and it's not. Do I wish the cover wasn't this? Yes, but also, it's not great. But I don't know, it's fine. I mean, I don't think this should be in a store. I think it could have a much better, compelling cover with a similar idea and be much better. But again, it's like truly self-published stuff. You want people to try to work with others and get something that's a little better, but sometimes it doesn't work out. So not a great cover. Just hire someone if you can, if you are going to do this. I know that's money that some people don't have. I mean, maybe at least get some other opinions before you finalize it. If you can't afford to hire someone, at least get some free advice from people around you who have some understanding of aesthetics and will be honest with you so that you can make a better cover. I mean, just do anything other than
that
put your
can
first
be pretty
idea.
hard to find, though.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a little unfortunate. Not the worst thing. Lastly, for formatting, there are a couple of emails and bad poems in here, but they are included because they're bad, and they give us more insight into just how desperate the author was at these points. And it's also not overused. It's not like the Midnight Library where we were getting texts described to us and songs and podcast interviews and it's just there's a couple in one section of the book. I don't love it, but it's fine. I understand its usage. Also, I think it added something, I think, to the time period in which this takes place, which is the early to mid 2000s. So, again, not my favorite thing, but fine. Punctuation. This was also fine. The author takes some liberties with capitalization, italics, parentheses, to give more impact and emphasis on the text, but it wasn't annoying to me. I feel like it made sense given the characterization of the main character here. So I feel like I'd give this a 1.
All right.
Yeah, it passes.
Crossed the first hurdle.
Yeah, it's not it's nothing, it's got some like paragraph separator things that I don't love, but it's fine. And like the chapter titles are just weeks in therapy followed by the entry number, so like week 44, entry 9, which makes total sense and isn't a shitty title for a chapter, which I hate. So I think I'm just gonna give it a 1 because it read fine. It booked.
Right.
I think it booked.
All right.
Right. Moving on to plot construction. All right, we're probably going to spend a little bit of time here. So first up is general coherence. I think this makes sense for someone in the Boston area with the background of this character as built in the text. The only things I felt an urge to look up were like Boston details from the past because, I moved here in like 2007, and some of this book takes place before then. So I just looked up a couple things. So I was like, oh, was that a real bus route? Or, was that restaurant really there? And it was all real. Like some of the stuff was like a discontinued bus route, which is why it wasn't familiar to me. Or it was like a restaurant that closed but used to be there. So I really liked that all the references to Boston were accurate and they weren't touristy in the way that a lot of other books we've read have been. Like Sleeping with the Fishes was that way, and so was we read
that was a while ago.
That was a long time ago. And then there was that other one that took place in sort of a post-apocalyptic Boston with like the robot superhero kids.
First Impressions, Second Confessions or something.
Yeah, that series, which also felt like the references were just very surface level and touristy. This one felt a little more lived in, felt a little more real. So that was cool. I liked that. And in terms of sort of how the character acts, we can talk about this more in character quality, but the things that happen in the book, the plot elements around this person, to me make sense. Like their relationships with men and drug use and issues with like authority, all to me reads as pretty possible or even probable. Nothing happened that was like just there for shock value or outrageous or like unlikely. To me, this personally, I feel like I know people like this. I have known people like this. So it made me, I don't know. I feel like the author did a good job and it made me sort of trust the author to, as I continued through the book. So didn't really have any issues with coherence there. Rules following. This book had, some twists in it, obviously. I thought that the author did a really good job keeping the primary twist not obvious for most of the book. And I feel like I figured it out at the right time, like just before the reveal. So
that's hard to do with a thing like this.
So the twist that Brandy and Farah are the same person, and then much later you find out Giselle is also part of them. There are some, I feel like the points where it comes up, again, it's like late enough in the book where I was like, oh, interesting. I didn't suspect this earlier.
But not in a way where you felt hoodwinked or like lied
No. In fact, I felt the author even at times was like, there was, because I was going back in the text just to like refresh myself and make sure I was getting details right and to pull out some quotes for the episode. And there's even a sentence where she's like, yeah, I met this girl through Shoshana who like went to college with BJ. Her name's Brandy. She's annoying. I don't know. We have the same birthday, but whatever. I don't know. I think she came from Ohio too. But like the way that she has talked about everything, you don't put much stock in that because she's a fabulist and an exaggerator, and you don't suspect that they're the same fucking person.
I'm curious about how the alternates interact with real friends, if at all. Like it.
Yeah, they do. I mean, in Farah's mind, she thinks she and Brandy are separate people. Other people interact with them, but they never say Brandy or whatever. It's like you don't, because you're not operating from anyone else's perspective except for Farah's.
Yeah.
So it's a little tough in that respect, so we don't really know how other people are perceiving this situation.
Okay.
Interestingly, she does receive a restraining order from Shoshana at one point while they're in the Hamptons house. And Farah opens it and is like, oh my God, I can't believe Brandy got a restraining order from Shoshana, and like throws it away.
Oh, woof.
So it seems like she is at the point where she's just auto-replacing anything in reality that she doesn't like with like Brandy's name, or so again, we don't see anything from anyone else's perspective, so this is an unreliable narrator, and we know that kind of early in the book. Anyway, I thought it followed its own rules just fine. All right, character quality. I think this author did a pretty good job writing an unstable, fucked up, but ultimately regular person. Like I said before, nothing felt like it was added explicitly for shock value. There are things that are indeed fucked up, but they still felt real and not like too over the top. As we have seen many times before, this seems to be hard for a lot of authors. Like, remember Verity, Chris?
Oh, yeah. That's what I'm comparing this to.
Yeah. And there are other, unreliable narrator is like that's a pretty unreliable lady narrator who is crazy. Seems to be like a pretty popular genre.
Yep.
And I feel like we've encountered a lot of poor examples of this. And yeah, I mean, it just seems like the author herself or people very close to her have lived these experiences, or she's really good at research. And so therefore, whatever the case, they just come across as more true. I'll just read a couple of excerpts. I'm just going to pick a couple of these.
All right.
Okay, I'll read a little bit from page 7 just to give you a glimpse into sort of the writing quality and like style. I was zoning out for the last time that evening when Mother startled the fuck out of me, her intention, I'm sure, by flipping the sun visor aggressively enough to smack the windshield. Daddy sighed. Mother slowly pulled the trigger and shot him the look. Muted light shaded her in angularity, needlessly contributing to her God-given Maleficent-esque qualities. Slowly, she returned her attention to the visor, pulled it forward, and stared at me through the mirror, which has always unnerved me. No one should ever be able to see the back and front of someone's head at the same time, especially at night. Daddy didn't say a word, which would have bothered me if I didn't know him, and Mother, like I do, but I totally do, so I understood. He did, however, lower the volume considerably, which really pissed me off. I loved Vivaldi, and Daddy knows that. With the volume so low, I could hear it, but I couldn't quite hear it, like voices through a wall. I hate that, and Daddy knows that too. Clearly, he was sending a message. Without breaking gaze, Mother reached into the brown calfskin handbag on her lap and said, "Do you see this piece of paper?" She raised it in her left hand slowly, which I now recognize as smugly. Her arm bent at a freakish angle I didn't think possible as she shoved the court order in my general direction and shook it. Now you listen to me, kid, and you listen good, with both of those pointy ears. My left ear comes to a slight point at the top. It's less Dracula, more nipply. Daddy calls it a nubbin. When I was like little, 6 or 7, he named it Nubby Bumpin' Stuff. Does Nubby Bumpin' Stuff want a little kiss? Ready or not, here I come, nom nom nom. I still sometimes talk to Nubby and pretend he's talking back. He sounds like Cookie Monster, only sinister, doing a half-joking shtick. He's a riot. He's never a problem per se, rather a minor insecurity as I've gotten older. I often forget he's there until I look in a mirror. By alluding to Nubby in a bad light that night in the car, Mother unwittingly established 2 things. 1, she apparently thinks he bothers me much more than he does, which kind of embarrasses me for her, and 2, she really is an incredibly insensitive asshole. This piece of paper says you are not capable of making decisions for yourself. No surprise there. It says that your father and I, by order of the court, are now in charge of overseeing your day-to-day affairs as well as your rapidly declining mental health. Get it? Synapses fired like machine guns, and I fully understood the combined meaning of the bloody words that fell from her Chianti-stained lips like casualties of war. I did my best to block out her Valium-soaked cadence and dissolve into winter, but with the volume so low, I could barely fucking hear it. "You're losing the game, Angel," air quotes. "See?" She shook the paper again, and then under her breath, "Happy effing birthday to you." She folded the document 1,000,000 times and slid it back into her hideous brown handbag made from the skin of a dead baby cow. Resentment blinded me, and I couldn't see my hands flapping like a beautiful bird in front of my face, which they sometimes did without warning, let alone the fact that I was, by all appearances, a prime candidate for 24-hour supervision and/or psychoanalysis and could have probably benefited from a trial of psychotropic drugs as well. Mother was right. I was losing the game. I realize that now. She didn't have to be such a dick about it. Just look at yourself, flapping your hands in front of your face like a fucking lunatic. You look positively insane. Anyway. Right.
Okay. I mean, I kind of like that. There is a lot of stuff there. The details that Farah is pointing out, sort of hyper-focusing on things, just how she responds to her mom's behavior, too. I feel ill at ease listening to that, which is the point.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot to like there. I felt like the dialogue, both the dialogue and the introspective thoughts are both very real, I think. All right. And then I'm just going to break off and pick a couple of other places to read. There we go. Okay, here's a snippet from page 18 describing her going to therapy. Twice a week, I leave Bonnie's office at 2:30 or 4:30, depending on the day, and I push through the door of that crumbling brick building at 2:34 or 4:34. I feel Mother's oppressive proximity before I see her. As soon as I see her, with that painfully bony face and wax beans meets white asparagus complexion, every last drop of almost fun oozes from my psyche and soaks into the deeply cracked asphalt of the parking lot. She waits for an hour and a half, sometimes in a handicap spot if the lot is full, in her tacky white Jaguar, a 50th birthday gift from Daddy like 10 years ago, idling, thumbing through the shiny pages of a Palm Beach monthly, fancying herself so proper, so classy. Mother has absolutely no connection whatsoever to Palm Beach. If I could turn and run down the street, I would fucking sprint, but I don't run, like, anywhere, ever, and Bonnie's office is at least 2 miles from my parents' place. That's far. I'm not good with distance. Maybe it's a mile. Anyway, Bonnie insists on seeing me out, all the way out. After every single session, her arm hooked through mine at the elbow as if she's escorting me down the aisle, giving me away, and running isn't an option. Each time I climb into the backseat of Mother's car, I feel like I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. But I have no choice. We ride home in awkward silence. So we kind of, even early on, we get the sense that Farah's perhaps more far gone and dangerous than she alludes. So I think it's revealed appropriately in excerpts like that. Let me just jump ahead a little bit.
I'm thinking of all the other books we've read that have like person in therapy scenes.
The Silent Patient. Remember that?
Yeah, I was just about to say that one.
Shit.
Yeah, man. Somehow this is handling it a little bit more delicately, but not letting off the gas in terms of, hey, something's a little askew. This person could possibly be a little dangerous. Not dangerous. Maybe unstable is a better way to put that.
I agree. Yeah, and I guess before I read a little more of another excerpt, I just want to say I really think that the parental neglect and dysfunction is well described in this, and it's identifiable, I think, to anyone who has maybe experienced that. Although, again, it's kind of unclear as to how much that is Farah interpreting her parents trying to help her as negative. It's very unclear, but I think it's done in a really good way given how unstable the character is. It's like the reader is still like, I'm not sure if her parents are assholes or if she's or if it's just because she's an asshole and that's bringing out the asshole in them, or if they're really just regular parents. It's kind of unclear. Grown-ups should censor what they say around children, but they hardly ever do. Back in the 80s, they did even less. At least mine did. Mother often answered, "How many children do you have?" with 2, a boy and a girl, but I lost one. His name was Brandon. And it worried me to the extent I would vomit in secret. From 6 to 10, I kept a puke bowl in my room and emptied it on the sly. It was one of Mother's beloved Tupperware containers, and it worked like a charm. The seal was impeccable. A good portion of my early childhood was spent feeling queasy while searching for Brandon, thinking maybe he was hiding somewhere, or, gasp, in danger. Was he tucked between the couch and wall like I had been on so many occasions, thinking it was a safe place where no one could, ready or not, here I come, find him? crouched inside the scratchy wicker hamper in the upstairs bathroom, behind a thorny rose bush in the salty neighbor Mrs. Bernstingle's backyard, cold and scared and hurty, but still somewhat safe, kidnapped? I knew I had to find him. If I found him, I would be great. Mother wouldn't be mean anymore, Daddy would have his baby boy back, and my family would be greater. 3 + 1 = 4. 4 is greater than 3. Of course, Brandon was always missing from the equation. My family of 3 remained less than. By the time I entered 3rd grade, I realized, probably later than I should have, that we'd never be greater, ever, and I stopped searching. It was intensely liberating. I also stopped throwing up in my closet, which was a welcome upshot of surrender to circumstances beyond my control. Whenever Mother worked Brandon into conversation within Daddy's earshot, he would promise me that Brandon's decision to live up in heaven with Kitty Cat and Nana had nothing to do with me, which obviously wriggled its way into my psyche and is why my subconscious still tries to hammer that shit out in my sleep. Thanks, Daddy. He absolved me of this manufactured, in retrospect, projected guilt many times, attempting to grab the reins of my runaway childhood and correct an uncontrollable skid that had been set in motion years before, but it was counterproductive and only served to complicate the matter. Heartfelt swing and pathetic miss. God bless him. Do you understand? He'd ask. I didn't, but I loved Daddy, so I pretended I did. Yes, Daddy, I'd say. I understand. I missed Kitty Cat, a goldfish I had for 1.5 days, and Nana a lot, and thinking about them made me sad. Don't cry, he'd say, and like a big girl, I would try not to cry, but I always did. Shh, come here, Angel. And I would come there, and Daddy would crush me with his love and tell me I was the best little girl in the world, paraphrasing. And I wanted to believe him, even at that young age, though. It seemed contrived. At 6 years old, it never occurred to me that I might have had any input in Brandon's decision not to join the Glickman clan. Culpability is a grown-up concept. Plus, my only contact with Brandon had been through Mother, and I don't even have vivid memories of that. I mean, I must have rubbed her stomach or did whatever it is that young children do when their mother is expecting, but who knows? I didn't. Mother's not maternal by any stretch of the imagination. She groundlessly resents me, and I resent her for that. Even at 6, I was aware that she blamed me for the loss of her beautiful baby boy. Please. Due in part to Daddy's frequent absolution, but due in larger part to Mother's tendency to side-eye me whenever she spoke of Brandon. Thankfully, she hasn't spoken of him in years. So, that's an early passage about her brother dying, and you can kind of get a sense that you get a sense that there's a conflict there. You're not really sure what happened, and over the course of the book, through the dreams she has and the few times it comes up, and then the very final paragraph, you learn the truth.
Yeah. What I liked about that was, it's not like both parents are super evil, which is something that you can kind of see a lot in media where it's like, I just had shitty parents. And like Dad isn't the good guy either, right? It's just good cop, bad cop parent in a way, which I've experienced plenty. And good cop can be just as bad cop sometimes, depending on the circumstance.
I mean, he's clearly trying to pretend that kind of nothing happened and that, it's just a misunderstanding, the baby must have just died and it definitely wasn't her fault, even though, pretty clear, later on anyway.
Yeah.
So I think those are some good passages. I feel like, I don't know, should I read some more or should I save that for moment to moment?
I would save it for moment to moment just because.
Okay, great.
That's a good overview, I think, of how things are plotted out.
Yeah. All right. So this next section, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think this is a very good example book to discuss this thing. So there are a couple of moments where Farah has some internal monologues that are racist or include other unsavory thoughts. So, for example, on page 110 to 111, she makes fun of her subletter, who is a small person, but she's called out for it by her therapist. On page 95, she's drunk and horny and thinking that the guy that she's going to hook up with, which actually is Tad, who she ends up dating, is Chinese and therefore will have a small penis. On page 187, there's kind of this triumvirate of like racism, fat phobia, and transphobia all at once.
Great.
Wherein she's describing a guy she met once who was catfish and was also catfishing someone. And so I'll read a little bit of those, but I just want to say, I always have the same question for moments like these in a text. And that question is, what does the work benefit by their inclusion? If you can cut it and not affect the plot or characters at all, then I feel like you should just cut it. It's like any other editing when you're doing when you're reviewing a written work. I mean, if something is superfluous or doesn't add to anything, then it probably shouldn't be there. And at least in this work, her therapist does typically call Farah out on these things when she includes them in her journal entries. Of course, there are times where it's just Farah thinking, so there's no other person there to kind of like clap back at her and be like, hey, that's fucked up. So it is kind of nice that you get another person saying, hey, that's racist. Like, you don't need to say things like that. And another reason I think that some of these inclusions kind of work in this text is that this is a person who is not supposed to be sophisticated. They are supposed to be from the Boston area, which is like historically pretty segregated and racist. Despite, a lot of people think, oh, Northern City, it's not right. No, people are racist here, just like everywhere. And the way that she embraces stereotypes against kind of everyone is, to me, a very Boston thing. I don't know if that's just me, but like yeah.
I mean, growing up as a boy in the Boston area, hey, let me tell you, stereotypes came up.
Yeah, and she seems to sort of, and she doesn't bring these things up. I will say, the character does not bring these things up with like hatred in her heart. They genuinely seem like learned racist behavior or learned, any kind of phobic behavior surfacing in a very natural way. And to me, that provides further characterization to this person as unrefined, not a deep thinker. They kind of have a lot of their own shit going on. And so they rely on these learned stereotypes. That being said, I think we could have done without page 187 because I don't think it really adds anything. At least with like her subletter that comes up and her therapist talks back to her, but then they kind of both end up. Actually, I should just read it. That would be better than me trying to describe what's happening. So hang on. Page 110 to 111. I sublet my apartment to a good friend of Tad's, Gregory, who happens, interestingly, to be a dwarf, and was surprised by how smoothly my spur-of-the-moment plans were progressing. It was as if the plan had been laid before it was made. I chalked it up to kismet. That's a pretty word, kismet. Gregory is a lawyer, but I have no idea what kind of law he practices, assuming he still practices, or whom he represents. Judging by his diminutive stature, the Lollipop Guild is most likely among his clientele.
Woof.
Yeah. Postscript. When Bonnie reads this, she tells me I'm a dwarfist, like that's even a thing. We then get into a discussion about being called a little person versus a dwarf, and both decide we prefer dwarf. Little person seems insulting, like they're less a person or something, which they're not. I'd be grumpy. She'd be Doc, of course. We sang, hi ho, it's off to work we go, and expressed our appreciation for being average-sized. Bonnie has to be like 4'11", 5 feet at the most, and I don't know if that's considered average size for her age, but still, at least she's not a dwarf. I don't know if I'd be able to deal if she were a dwarf. I'm going to hell. I know. So
okay.
Yeah. So it's
wow. The therapist there not exactly getting off scot-free.
Right. And I think and it also seems a little, because Chris, I'm going to tell you right now, I do not think she and the therapist saying, hi ho, it's off to work we go.
Unreliable narrator perhaps rearing its head there.
I think this is her kind of disassociating and saying things that didn't really happen to try to alleviate what she knows is shitty. And, so I don't love it, but I think that if, it gives us a little more color, let's say, about the negative side of her relationship to other people and her personality.
When you talk about how you should cut it if it's not necessary for the text, I think usually this kind of thing is included as an easy lever to pull to be like, shit person, bad.
Right. Yeah.
kind of thing. And like that's valid as it kind of is here, but it's delicate for sure.
Yeah. I'm actually going to read to you from the drunk and horny section because I think
All right.
I think this one is probably the most valid to include. So page 94 to 95. I'm going to the ladies' room, back in a flash trash. I used to say that a lot back then, back in a flash trash. Like I was calling the people I was with trash. That embarrasses me now and should have back then as well. I set my beer on the felt, strictly against the rules, leaned my stick against a wall, and walked away. I have to go too. Hold up, love. I'll walk with you. Oh shit, I thought. Not another premature sexcapade in the men's room. Well, I was nowhere drunk enough to make that happen. It popped into my head nonetheless, and I quickened my pace across the pool room. A party mix of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror was blaring from the speakers. Hey, he yelled. I said hold up. Wait a minute. Ted was super cute, kind of rugged and tall for a Chinaman. I had taken note of his large feet within seconds of meeting him, shoes being the fourth thing I noticed when meeting a man. Number 1, height. Number 2, face. Number 3, teeth. Number 4, shoes. Wedding ring is number 5. A man's footwear generally speaks volumes about him. Jesus sandals? Only acceptable on the sacred feet of Jesus. Suede bucks? No. Athletic shoes in any scenario but athletics? Absolutely not. Tad wore black beetle boots. Passable, but I digress. They say there's no correlation between foot size and penis size, but it's my belief that there is, so there is. They also say Asians aren't known for their sizable junk, which is a very offensive stereotype. Turns out they have no idea what they're talking about, and my belief that I always get huge cock once again created my reality. Tad's cock was huge. I've always been fortunate in that regard. It's a law of attraction thing.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
There's some nuance there.
Yep. So
Oh,
really getting into her mind, and
I gotta say that was another great example of that. You can see her just trying to clock people and appraise them based on shitty rubric, shall we say?
Yep.
And that characterizes her.
And I think people's inherent learned racist behavior will surface more when you're drunk, right? Like that's a natural thing that happens. Your first impressions, what you first think is what you are taught, what you've learned. And then the second layer of thought is, hopefully what you've sort of refined and added to that over the course of your lived experience and grown, and they're like your more grown thoughts, right? So you see her going from like, people say this, well, I know that's a shitty stereotype, but then you see how sort of surface level her thinking is about a lot of things. She is only ever fixated on her own immediate needs and desires, like in terms of drugs, sex, companionship. Like that's all she ever cares about. She does not do any deep thinking. And while of course this is offensive, I think this is a realistic depiction of a person having those kinds of offensive thoughts that they've learned. And again, we're talking about Boston, which to me feels like the area where people just love stereotypes. She also talks shit about the Irish here and there, and
get them all in.
Yeah. So we've talked about this a lot, and I wanted to spend a little time on this today because I feel so often we encounter authors trying to include stuff like this in works and failing, and I feel like this random self-published book actually did a better job of doing it. So thought it was worth talking about.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Paris. I feel like that's a lot of the reason we do this podcast in the first place, is finding stuff like that, not totally, relevant to the conversation here, not totally judging everything by its cover or its context.
Yeah. All right. Lastly, though, I do want to talk about the one inclusion in this realm that I thought definitely could have been cut, because I was like, by this point in the book, what the fuck is this adding? This just felt kind of unnecessary and cruel to these populations. I don't know. This is page 187 in a 218-page book. So we're in the last 15% of this book. Like, I still am like, why the fuck was this included? Okay, here we go. I think I'll read a little bit ahead just so it's not completely out of context. So this is starting on page 186. Week 59, entry 24. It was time to reassess again. I needed to take stock. Johnny Jardin was a 36-year-old ex-con who lived in Alston and worked in a record store. Did Daddy's Junkie Music sell records?
In the
that.
back a little
Did
bit.
they? Oh, okay. All right.
They
all
weren't
right.
primarily a record store, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, I did find that detail a little funny. I was like, nah, I definitely bought an amp there. Like,
For
when I was a
non-Bostonians,
kid.
it's a musical instrument store that no longer exists and was taken over by Guitar Center.
And taken over and had its throat cut by Guitar Center. I think is the right. I love Daddy Junkie's music, so I'm real sad the place doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, sure, he had a vision, but feed all the homeless in Boston you want. They're still sleeping on subway grates and pissing in their secondhand skivvies. Giving a man a fish never works. You have to teach him how to fish. He'll eat for a much longer time. Everybody knows that. It's a famous worldwide axiom. So again, she's like shitting on the homeless here because Johnny works at a soup kitchen or volunteers at a soup kitchen. I decided not to give Johnny any more fish. Who the hell wants to hang out with the indigent in a soup kitchen every Friday night? Not this girl. Plus, Johnny didn't know how to handle my moods. Whenever I was feeling weepy or cruel, he blamed PMS. I hate that. It's so cliche. When I stopped and thought about it, though, like overall, we had a pretty good thing going on. Johnny was sweet, attentive, charitable, a real do-gooder. He was cute enough and really tall, too, which I love. He had to be about 6'5". When I stopped and thought about it again, though, I got that empty feeling again, and I knew it was time to move on. There's something so inorganic about that, which reminds me of a story. I once waited on a very nice man who had to be pushing 450 pounds. I'm talking circus fat. He looked like Buddha with a nasty-ass salt and pepper ponytail and Fu Manchu mustache and beard. He was dining alone, blowing through Boston on his way from Albany to Hawaii to meet his fiancée, whom he had met some 2 months before on the ever-loving internet but had never seen, at all, in any way, shape, or form. I didn't ask, but my general feeling was that she had never seen him either. His name was Richard James, but he went by Dick James. I wondered, and still do, why he didn't call himself Rick, which is more pleasant than Dick, but I didn't ask. I figured he must have really hated Rick James for some reason, and I didn't want to open that can of worms. Imagine if Rick Springfield went by Dick Springfield? The thought of it sickens me. Anyway, I placed Dick's tiramisu and biscotti and gelato in front of him and thought of his presumably unsuspecting betrothed. I asked if he was nervous, having never seen Puanani. As it turned out, they had never spoken either. Nothing ventured, he said, mouthful. Nothing gained. I just hope she's not a 6'7" tranny named Victor. Been there, done that, girl. He snapped his fingers in Z formation, and then it was face down in tiramisu and biscotti and gelato for the next 10, maybe 5 minutes. Dick James and Puanani, the beautiful flower. I wonder whatever happened with those two. Why?
Oh, yeah.
Why?
All right.
Again, just needlessly cruel to someone who's fat. And also, he's an asshole. It's just like,
yeah.
I don't understand the inclusion. So this is a great example of what you would keep and cut. A shitty, unreliable narrator who sucks, who you want to demonstrate who sucks and has some learned racist behavior. But you didn't need that last one, man. You really could have cut that. I don't know why it's there. It was a bad inclusion because it does nothing for the text or the story. You can easily cut it and have the same book. Why?
Do you think maybe there is an attempt at comedy here? I feel like sometimes, like you think about a show like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where everyone sucks, and you're supposed to be kind of like, "Wow, all these assholes are here," or like even Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Or like Curb, yeah.
Yeah, like, do you think it's an attempt at that, where like, "Oh wow, they're all assholes"?
It's possible, but I still don't think that was elegantly done or needed to be there.
Why include it?
Yeah, like, man, just cut that right out. It's a very small paragraph. Why? And again, we don't need, at that point in the book, it's almost done. The book is almost over. The book is going to be over in 30 or 40 pages, less than 40 pages. We do not need any more evidence that Farah is maybe not great and does not think deeply about things and stereotypes everyone around her. We've already learned that. So the whole, like, shitting on homeless people and then this weird tirade against, I don't know, everyone, it just seems just so unnecessary and bad. So, yikes. Alrighty. So I guess this brings us to the end of plot construction. I kind of want to give this a 1.
I mean,
I feel like
I'm not hearing anything that's like wildly out of step.
Also, this didn't pass through an editing team, presumably. This is just a person writing a book. So, like, I kind of want to be a slightly more lenient, because we have read books from major publishing houses that were far worse in terms of including shitty, stereotypical, racist, phobic shit that did not need to be there. So let's not forget the rest of the good, because there was this one thing that needed to be cut. All right, moment to moment. Talk about prose quality. So I feel like the prose was generally well written in, it's a specific style. Might not be for you. It honestly is not a style I particularly like. I will admit that, like, this whole sort of freeform thought kind of thing is not really for me. But I think if you are the kind of person who wants to read something in the style of, like, maybe your new best friend you made in prison retelling her life to you with all the sincere, insincere, and unflattering parts, that's what this kind of felt like. Not that I know what it's like to be in prison, but, like, to me, it just sort of has that vibe of someone almost trauma dumping on you. Like,
you're like sitting next to them at a party or a restaurant, and you're like, I'm learning too much about you too quickly.
Yeah. And again, most of this is her therapy diary. So it should be divulging deep things, but it is written in this very casual, close, friendly way. So I think the author is going for that style, and she got that style, right? Even though it's not something that I really enjoy, I think it was done well. And I mean, at least that's my best guess at what the intent was. I can read a couple more passages that I didn't read before, so you can get a little bit more of a sense from different parts of the book. Just jump over. All right, this is just a last reading example, page 169 to 170. This is when she gets out of her first hospital stay after she, attacks, or Brandy attacks BJ or whatever. She, goes through the therapy, is deemed competent after a month of inpatient or whatever, and goes back home. Gregory was gone by the time I got home. Rather, when I came to life the following afternoon, still dressed in my sturdy psych ward-issued paper blouse and my own lived-in Levi's. My head was a cracked pot filled to the lip with congealed pea soup. I tried my best to recall what all had happened the day, the evening, weeks before, but couldn't. There may have been something to do with macaroni and cheese, or maybe I just wanted some macaroni and cheese when I woke up. Either scenario is plausible. I love macaroni and cheese. My eyes were gooey, pasted shut, and I practically had to pry them apart. I thought about Jerry of Tom and Jerry fame, and about how he was always screwing around with Tom's existence, always snipping off his tail with a huge pair of pinking shears, or manipulating his weighty kitty lids with filthy, mousy hands. What a bastard. It used to bother me that Tom was portrayed as the asshole when all he was trying to do was fulfill his role as a hard-working, mouse-catching house cat, but the world's an imperfect place. We learned to adjust. When the hostile interplay ceased one day, and Tom and Jerry became allies, things got confusing. The cartoon relationship became strange and puzzling, almost insulting. Was I really supposed to believe that a cat and a mouse, innate nemesis, always around the corner with a sledgehammer or a kitchen knife, had agreed, out of the blue, mind you, unless I missed a very important episode, to bury the hatchet and become buddies? I don't think so. The show became difficult to watch after that. That's when, in this writer's humble opinion, Tom and Jerry officially jumped the shark. Characters acting out of character complicates things, and frankly, it's frightening. Postscript. Bonnie tells me I watched too much television as a child. She has no idea.
That's actually a very funny aside for like.
Well, yeah, because she's internally wrestling with like her and her other personalities, and like, it to me it's like a reflection of that, but she's interpreting it through this lens to make it more palatable, to herself, I think.
Yeah, it turns into like an old school internet blog post trying to like just like have a fun time reviewing Tom and Jerry.
In terms of dialogue, I think for something with an unreliable narrator who is very flawed, we surprisingly do not have that forced, edgy vibe as we've seen in a lot of past books, like Verity and the Silent Patient, which we both immediately thought of.
Yep.
to me, the language is earnest and natural for the inner monologue of someone with this particular life. Someone extremely troubled, extremely mentally ill, brought up in a, I don't know, suburban white world who kind of feeds on stereotypes and doesn't think very deeply. It to me, it's just very accurate. I just want to emphasize, even those really shitty, like, you know, racist or phobic parts of the book, they did not seem forced to me. They seemed, for this character, to be in character. As much as I really hated that last one, I think it should have been cut. And there are other parts too where I feel like even though something happens that's maybe unsettling or gross, it doesn't feel over the top or forced. And actually, there's one that I want to read if I can find it. Sorry, it's a little bit of a longer section, but I think this is a good illustration of how things are gross and uncomfortable, but they don't feel fake, forced, over, like, intentionally edgy, you know. Johnny had to work the next morning at 10 o'clock. He was a, quote, music technician at Daddy's Junkie Music downtown. Johnny was 36 years old. Did I mention that? He used sugar water and egg whites to spike his hair. It was L'Oreal Platinum number 145 with black licorice roots. Very Depeche Mode circa 1983. Some Great Reward featuring blasphemous rumors and master and servant. He wore it well. Not a lot of people can pull that look off. Johnny could. Well, he sort of could. The man was 36 years old, after all. He was super stressed, so I let him have sex with me one last time to loosen up. That's called sacrifice. When he was finished, he climbed down, cuddled me, and started ranting about some unsavory shit about to good doon at Daddy's, before a few cups of coffee, heavy with cream. Listening to the man was like choking down burnt rye without butter. I swear to God, it literally made me wince. I listened to him vent with the corner of my right ear, hoping I was injecting uh-huhs in the appropriate places, and with the rest of my right and all of my left, I listened to Jesus do his best to engage me in a heated discussion about the price of lettuce in Texas, but I refused to take part, even though I so wanted to. Obviously, I couldn't. So she is hearing Jesus talking to her about the price of lettuce in Texas. Yeah. This
poor guy but for the grace of God go I.
Yeah. Poor Johnny. From what I gathered, 3 people, Johnny among them, were vying for a coveted management position at the store. Apparently, the tension had been building for quite some time, and the pent-up shit was about to hit the rock and roll fan. Johnny said he deserved the position and claimed he knew more about music than anyone, least of all his boneheaded coworkers. He wanted it so badly, and was pretty sure he'd get it, and he even swore he'd give up poutine for life if he got it. Johnny's love for poutine bordered on addiction, so that really got my attention. By the end of the day, he would know whether the job was as secured in his back pocket as he thought it was. I wanted Johnny to get it too. I really did. It obviously meant a lot to him. I just didn't want to be around when his shift was over, whether he got it or not. "Lock the door when you go, are the last words he ever said to me in person. He blew a kiss at me as he left, and I bobbed and weaved to miss it. I was over him. Before I got out of bed, I felt what I prayed wasn't semen sliding down my inner thigh, and I panicked. I was on birth control at the time because duh, but Johnny's proclivity to release his foreign seed inside my sugar walls unnerved me. I looked under the sheets to see what was going on down there, and curses! Johnny's beige sheets were abloom with a Rorschach rose garden. I got out of bed and walked bow-legged to the bathroom, both hands cupping my wounded twidget. Oh, God, that's a... I sat on the toilet and bore down hard. Yep. I looked between my thighs and saw a cherry-sized clot sinking to the bottom of the bowl, pulling a thin red trail of bloody mucus behind it. Nasty. At least I'm not pregnant, I thought. Fuck, now what do I do? I tore through my purse, knowing there was nothing in there to stop the flow, but I had to look anyway, just in case there was. There wasn't. I scrunched up some scratchy toilet paper, shoved the wad into the barely there crotch of my thong, and got dressed. I tried to wash away my scarlet shame with soap and water, but the dots wouldn't budge. Scrubbed the fitted sheet with Johnny's nail brush, but the damn spots were staying right where they were. Found another beige sheet just like it in his closet and made the bed. I bundled the soiled linen and shoved it into an industrial-sized garbage bag that I found in an enormous box in the cupboard beneath the kitchen sink, right beside a huge bottle of glass cleaner. Johnny stole cleaning supplies from Daddy's Junkie Music storeroom. His CD collection was the largest
management like that, buddy.
I have ever seen in my entire life. I triple knotted the bag, pulled a comb across my head, grabbed my purse, and left Johnny's apartment, locking the door behind me. I threw the big black sack over my shoulder, Santa style, and hauled it down the back stairs, feeling guilty as sin. As I made my way down 3 flights, I fantasized there was a body in the bag. Maybe not a human body, but like a dog or a cat. I was committing some sort of crime. My defense? Moral embarrassment. I wasn't a boot to go doon like that. I jumped on the number 63 bus and did Kegels, legs crossed, the entire 25-minute ride to my part of town. The bag sat in a clump on the seat next to me, my arm wrapped protectively around it, and I wouldn't move it despite several dirty looks tossed my way. Selfish, perhaps, but nobody was broken or pregnant or old. They could stand. The city bus wasn't their personal car service. People tend to feel a sense of entitlement when they pay $1 fare. You paid $1 to ride, I had to remind them, not sit. So, obviously, some of the word choices there were terrible, and I absolutely think the word, like, wounded twidget, terrible way to describe vagina. Sugar walls, terrible way to describe a vagina. Awful. But I think the rest of the scene very accurately describes suddenly getting your period in your new boyfriend's house and being absolutely fucked with what to do and being so ashamed that you take the whole thing home on the bus. That to me was like a very real feeling I have experienced.
Been there before. No.
Yes. And also like not having anything and having to just shove toilet paper in your tiny thong and be like, I don't know, I hope if I squeeze enough, I won't just bleed all over the bus. Like, I have been there. And it was
specifically on the 63?
No, because that is a discontinued bus route.
Yeah. Everyone takes the 66 instead now. Like me. Or the 86. I really just have to say that I feel like there's a midnight library quantum Chris out there that is Johnny, just like really hoping for that Daddy's Junkie music management position.
Yeah, and so oh god, that's unfortunate. So anyway, I thought that was good. It was a great section to read because it is great in some respects and very bad in others. Like how Johnny is so Canadian, she writes his dialogue tries to do it with the accent, and he loves poutine. It's just like, come on, man. It's just so. But I am sat here wondering, was the author trying to be funny about stereotypes, or is this just Farah being a shit?
Yeah.
It's hard to know.
Yeah.
I want to believe it is to demonstrate that Farah is a shit and not the author trying to do a really bad, like, Canadian joke, but I don't know. It could be one or the other. Anyway, I still think moment to moment, I think this was fine. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I want to give it a 0 or 1. I think I want to give it a 0.
Okay.
A 0. Just because there were a lot of word choices that were bad, and it's not a style I like, but I still thought the author kept the train moving well enough.
Yeah.
You know? All right. Terriblo's presence. Chaos levels. I mean, this is about someone with severe mental illness who has multiple personalities, so it is naturally chaotic, but I feel like it was kind of chaotic in the way it needed to be. I don't think this was that weird or anything.
Mm-hmm.
The hull levels. How often do we have to stop, go back, and read again to make sense of what just happened? I don't think I had to do that at all. And then please help. The amount of times I had to contact Chris. Did I contact you at all about this book?
You never said a thing about this book to me, I think, actually.
No, I didn't. I think I read it in like 2 sittings. That's why I was like really trying to burn through. All right, so I guess for Terriblo's presence, I don't feel like Terriblo is really here.
No.
So
is that a 1?
It's a 1. It's a 1. All right, should this exist? Would readers of this genre enjoy this? I actually think people who are into this whole like unreliable, unstable lady narrator thing would probably like this. That seems to be a very popular genre these days, and I think this would appeal to them. Do we feel as if the author's goal was met? I mean, I guess I can't really guess what her goal was beyond put this book I wrote out there. Does it add anything new, interesting, or novel? No, I do not think it does. For me, it's not a terribly interesting premise, and I don't think it adds anything new. I think it just does this genre kind of the way you would expect. Did it take something from us? No, I don't think so. What should you read instead of this? I feel like this book would be at home with things like Sharp Objects and Young God by Catherine Faw Morris. Very different style, but sort of a similar topic. and I'm sure there's other things out there that somebody else could recommend, but I don't know. Those are the first things that kind of came to mind. Can we fix it?
Paris,
I think
the
what?
score, please.
Oh, God damn it. Okay. Sorry. Let's see. We did 1, 1, 0, 1, 0.
3 out of 5.
3 out of 11, technically, or 3 out of, God, our scale doesn't make any sense. I don't know. It's like, whatever. It's like getting us, what, 6.5 out of 10 if you do the math.
I think, you just should listen to the show to understand the scale. Simple as that.
So your book could be rated anywhere from a -5 to a 5. So getting a 3 on the scale is pretty great, actually.
It
is. All right, can we fix it? I feel like you could easily query some publishers with this, and I think if this got a professional edit and cover, I think it would be totally welcomed by readers of this genre. Again, not really a genre I care about or am interested in, but it's a popular thing, and I feel like this self-published, self-written book did a pretty all right job for doing the whole, like, troubled crazy lady thing, Again, not something I like, but I can give credit where it is due. So, it definitely needs a professional edit. It needs some work, but it's not. Thinking back to all of the terrible books that we have found throughout the TBC cosmos in the last 11 years, especially thinking about those self-published ones, this is not nearly at the bottom of the pile. Let's say that.
I would agree. All right, Paris, thank you so much for taking us through that one. And thank you to our patrons and Ko-fi donors. Prepare for me to murder your names extra hard with this whole Invisalign thing in my mouth here.
Oh, yeah.
So here we go. Thank you to Iridescenza, Arant, Patricia, Donnie, Last Man on Earth 01, Gray, Puppet Self, Eldritch Nemo, Jan, Samantha, Kristen, Fred, BB89, Carol, Anna, Zoe, Caroline, George, Xander, One of None, 1 in 1,000, Jake, Angela, Jihao Chen, Trendy Laws, Isaac Sack, Joanna and Alexander, and of course our bad bookworms like Ben D, Other Ben, JC, Emily, Katie M, Scott, Jakub, and Will, our exacting editors like Throttle19, William V, AMFP, Root Beer Cutie, Elliot, Patrick, The Ugly One, Emmy, Harry 7, David, Martin, Kieran, and D, and of course our loathsome librarians like Yanka, Luchek, Veronica, and Jeff, and our pesky publishers like Beast with the Least, Miles, and Athena, and of course our ever faithful Ko-fi donors like Kiwi Thing, Excavating Lizard, Mark, and Gillian. If you want some terrible books we've read for the show, you can buy them over on our Ko-fi page like this one. This is a physical copy. So ask us for it. We'll send it to you for a little money. All right, Paris, I guess I'm off to ride the 66 bus with too much stuff on the seat beside me. No, I would never do that. I put it in front of me, in between my legs, because I always carry...
you're not an asshole like Farah. You respect...
Well, I always carry a giant guitar case with me, so I'm like somewhat of an asshole no matter what I do, but I try my best.
Very good. I'm just going to continually apologize to our coffee donor Jillian, whose name is Jillian and not Gillian, I'm pretty sure, because Gillian is not a name people have.
Yes, it is.
What?
Yeah.
You've met a Gillian in your life?
Yes.
Who? Prove it.
I don't know. Like, there was like a couple of people in college, like 1 or 2.
Chris, you are an unreliable narrator. No one is named Gillian. I'm pretty sure that is Jillian. I'm sorry, Jillian.
I'll say Jillian from now on. I apologize as well. I
can't wait for this person to write in and be like, my name is Gillian. Fuck you, Paris. I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Jillian. Anyway, we don't know your name, but thank you for your support.
It's actually Gillian. So we're both
Gillian. All right. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else today. I think blessedly we can end this episode, and then I will have to endure the torture of recording another of my episodes today because Chris is enduring a different torture.
Yeah.
For a future recording.
And it's not the teeth thing either. It's just a big old fat double episode, which you can all get excited for.
Lots of torture over here on Terrible Book Club. Keeping it consistent for our 11th year.
All right.
All right, folks. We're going to blast off into the literary cosmos and see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Terrible Book Club. Terrible Book Club is an independent podcast produced by your hosts, Bookbarella and Scribando. Sound design and effects, audio editing, and music by Oselka Sound, with occasional resourcing from the Epidemic Sound Library. Our theme song is Kiss by Urine. You can find more soothing synthy sounds like this on Bandcamp at urine.bandcamp.com. Do you want us to review a book of your choice on the show? Do you want access to almost a decade of extra audio-visual weirdness? If so, become a patron at patreon.com/terriblebookclub. If you'd rather send us a one-time tip or simply hate Patreon, you can instead go to ko-fi.com/terriblebookclub. You can also support TBC for free by checking out and sharing our website, terriblebookclub.com, subscribing to the show on your podcast app of choice, following our accounts on YouTube, Blue Sky, Instagram, Tumblr, or Storygraph, sending your friends a link to your favorite episode, or by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or anywhere else on the internet. To send us book recommendations and/or your adorable pet photos, send an email to terriblebookclub@gmail.com.